I know we were going to make the podcast about comedy, but I do think it's interesting how me and you definitely use comedy as like a coping mechanism. So like, I don't think it's too far off to say like, yeah, this is also kind of talk about comedy, because I'm thinking both of us share the affinity for like using humor to get through tough moments. Okay. Hi, Helen.
It's a big day.
It's going to be a weird podcast because our topic is somber, but we just got very exciting news. I'll let you share. It is.
But I think it's a good idea that we have the news while we're talking about this topic, so we don't go too deep into a black hole, because death and birth are very closely connected. So we just found out as of 15 minutes ago, before we started this podcast, that Jenna's water broke and they are on their way to the hospital to have the baby. So we are so excited. And so now we're waiting, right? We're waiting. But while we're waiting, we had planned to record this episode, and it's been a crazy week. It's a crazy week. And I have to, like, after this baby is born, I have to go and shoot next week. So I'm like, oh, my brain. So the timing of this is so wild. But what we wanted to talk about today is death, weirdly, and not necessarily death, but losing parents, like being at the age now where most of my friends have already lost their parents, and my parents have lived a bit longer. My dad died at 94 a couple of weeks ago, May 13th to be exact. And I think I'm ready to talk about it. So let's do that. Shall we?
We shall.
And it was funny timing when we watched that Sarah Silverman special. So if you did your homework assignment and you watched her comedy special from us telling you to do that last week, then you have some inkling of where this podcast is going.
I just want to say that when we started, because we watched that special, it's her new special, it's called PostMortem, and we watched it like the night before we left after the trip out there for the funeral. And I was like nervous that that's the one we picked. And then I felt bad that was the one we picked given the circumstances. But then the other week when you mentioned how much you liked it and enjoyed it, I was like really happy that comedy could be there for you in this moment.
Yeah, I really loved it because, well, for many reasons, but most. What?
Let me just. Her special is all about how Sarah Silverman's special is about how her dad and her stepmom both died 9 days apart.
Right.
So that's the.
And it was involved, and her involvement in the care of them, I guess, especially her dad in the last part of his life. So, okay. So not starting with the comedy, let's like circle back a little bit and talk about leading up to, the whole parental thing, and leading up to, like, your parents are going, me as a 64-year-old, I know my parents are not going to live forever at this point. I've had them, I've known them for all of my life. They are the people that I've known my whole life, and it's just unbelievable. But as life evolves, like, I'm not connected to my parents every day in this life. So as a lot of people will talk to their mother every day or somebody, I talk to my mom a couple of times a week, but not like every day. They were on my mind a lot because of the last few years of having to move them into assisted living and being involved in that. But my life is disconnected from them enough. So they're not part of my like daily activities of life. I have we talk a lot. We have our things that we do all the time, but my parents are not necessarily part of my day-to-day life. So it evolves to a point where that happens. And in a sense, maybe the separation becomes a little bit easier. But over the past couple of years, it has been a tough haul. They have had a tough time moving into assisted living. They didn't plan for this part of their life. They were not forward thinkers when it came to anything like picking a couch. It would take them 5 years to buy a new couch. So picking assisted living, that's never going to happen. So we had to force the hand a lot of the times. And I think that was part of the past few years' journey that did make separation a little easier. I wanted to talk about it because I thought some of the things in her special were so relatable.
I think I had this kind of feeling when he was the past few weeks of like, Grandpa was sick for like a long time. So it was almost easier to let go knowing that he's been in this place. Did you feel similarly to that of like, because he had been sick for so long, or sick, I don't know if sick's the right word.
Yeah, no.
Deteriorating. I don't know. It's
deteriorating.
decline.
It's very accurate. Like he was outliving his body. His brain was outliving his body, which a lot of times is the opposite. So I was grateful that his mind really didn't ever go that far. He had moments of where medications were making him say crazy things at night, for example, with the sundown syndrome thing. But for the most part, when I would visit with him, he was 100% there. He knew what was happening. We made the TikToks a lot of times when I would go over there and visit him before he even got very sick. I would walk in and you'd go, oh, instead of saying, Helen's here, he'd go, oh, TikTok, TikTok. And I loved that. So we had this little connection, and he was into that part of my life. Like he was always very much interested in whatever we were doing. And that was one of the things I put in the eulogy, that he always took an interest in whoever he was talking to. And I kind of like, that was my kind of cool thing. Like, if I'm going to say be emotional about any of it, it was like, oh, I love that he was always willing. And so that was a good part of it for me. Like, here's what came up in the Sarah Silverman special that's related to this, that's going to help me not get emotional about it. But she said she would think that the memories of who she was going to miss, I'm going to get through this without being emotional, but the memories of who she was going to miss, she thought it was going to be her dad when he was younger, like when he was in his 40s or 50s, like when she was a teenager, or memories like that. But in fact, the guy she misses is the old man. And that is like the most interesting thing I took away from that special, because I was like, yes, like my memories of him now, of Grandpa now, is us making TikToks together with his little walker. I'm not thinking about as much about, oh, the grandpa who was, watching cartoons with us when we were kids, because he used to do that, or try to think of things we used to do with him. He was not like, he was a kind of a TV watcher kind of dad. Like he'd watch cartoons with us. He'd always be there to talk to about things, but he wasn't like, it's not like we went on hiking adventures or anything like that. So not those kind of memories. And I didn't go golfing with him. Those were things he did. But my point is, my memories are not of him as a young man. My memories are as him for the past 2 years. And I kind of love that, really. Like so all the memories in my phone are like the best, because it's like, we made those funny TikToks and he was really into it. And then he was trying to get the lip sync right, but he would be saying other words. And like literally TikTok memories are my best memories of him, which is kind of the craziest, funniest, coolest thing ever in my book. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not even, and my tears are not like, I'm weepy. I'm more like, I don't know, good memories kind of tears. Yeah. Like
happy tears.
I even have found some drafts I hadn't posted, and I'm like, oh God, I might have to
post
little nuggets in my phone. And I love that I had the nuggets so that I could make the videos and make the video of him. Like, I just was so happy that I had that. My biggest cry was making that video. Otherwise, I was pretty much like, okay, I'm accepting. I like the way he left in a way that I was on his terms, like really slowly. He was almost gone for a week before he was gone. Which helped us accept, because we would go there every night and it was like he was already gone, because he was in almost a coma state. And so it helped us. I think that he did us a favor by the way he exited.
I know we were going to make the podcast about comedy, but I do think it's interesting how me and you definitely use comedy as like a coping mechanism. So like, I don't think it's too far off to say like, yeah, this is also kind of talking about comedy, because I'm thinking both of us share the affinity for like using humor to get through tough moments. So I don't think it's far off for us at all. The special that Sarah Silverman that was like really insightful and like a nice tribute, and it like helps you process it, because it helps almost distract you from what could be sad or negative, and you focus on the joy or even like the funny parts that were in the negative. And I think that's why I like comedy. It's like and why my comedy sometimes is always about darker stuff, but finding the light in it. And it's like, it helps you process it and move on in a more positive way. So
I think it also makes it more real in some way, because we can accept something, so therefore we can laugh about it. So when it was happening, when he was leaving for that week where he was out of it, I was I kept saying to my siblings, and I know I was like, I don't know how they're going to receive this in the group chat, but I was like, yeah, he's doing the Italian goodbye. He's not giving us an Irish exit. And I thought that was so funny because
It was funny.
because it's like, especially, and then Tom was saying not even Italian goodbye, Metzler goodbye, because he thinks that's even longer than an Italian goodbye. Like the whole, the family, like we can never just say goodbye in 5 seconds and leave. We have to, everybody has to say goodbye and go around the table again and say goodbye and kiss, then hug everybody again. So that was funny. And I was making my own jokes about it. And and I think it does help me. It really does. Like when I wanted to write the eulogy with you, the two of us did it together at the restaurant. Let's talk about us writing the eulogy for a second, because I think that was like such a significant memory for me already between me and you. Is we were in Vegas for the trip, and I said, Julie, you have to help me write this eulogy. I want it to be heartfelt, but I want go ahead.
You wanted to write the eulogy the week before we got there. You're like, you're not going to help me write this. I said, okay. And then the whole trip goes by. We haven't done it. And the last dinner, I'm like, oh, you need to tackle this eulogy. Like, what do you want to say? And I was,
So she takes out her phone. Julie takes out her phone. Picture it. We're at a really nice restaurant. Fancy steakhouse. Fancy steakhouse. There's 2 guys next to us. I have no idea what they thought I was crying about, because the whole time I'm trying to tell you the things that I want to include in this, and you're feverishly typing with your thumbs, which is always amazing to me, into your phone. And I'm like, I want to say this, and I want to say this, because I have the thoughts in my head of what I wanted to say. I just couldn't organize it into like smooth thoughts. That's what I needed you for. So like, well, what else do you want to say? All right. So what do we have to say in the beginning? What are the things we have to say based on what the church, the church tells you can only say, certain things in when it's spoken in the church, whatever. And I was like, well, I'll say one thing that's related to his religion, but the rest is going to be personal. So we were ticking off all the boxes, but I had the things I wanted to say. But every time I was trying to say to you the thing that I was trying to say, I kept crying. So my things was like preparation. I was crying when I was making the video. I was crying when I was telling you the things, but I knew that I would be able to get up there and speak this thing without crying. I knew it. I knew it. And this is why I knew it, because when I was writing Olivia's wedding officiating service, and I was crying the whole time, because Olivia, if you're listening, you're so special to me. And when I was writing that, I wanted to make sure I put all of those feelings about you and your love for Ian into the writing. So I was bawling through the writing of that. And then trying to read it to you as a practice, can't even get through it. I'm crying reading it to Julie. And I had to keep reading it over and over and continue to cry every time I read it, because I knew that when I got in the moment, I wouldn't cry, because
like you got all the
went through it enough, and I got all the emotions out. So I knew I was going to be okay. I really did. It was like, thank you, Olivia, because you set me up for this. Olivia set me up for success. And when we were in the church, Catherine sitting next to me says, this is what's funny. She goes, are you going to say anything? And I go, yeah. Because I'm like, doesn't she know I was going to speak? So I said, yeah, I am. And she goes, are you going to do it? And I said, I'm going to do it. Just like that. That's how that went in church. And then, I don't know. So I knew I was going to be able to do it. I did it. Really, and I could have really, at the very end, when I did like the final like sentence, is when I got choked up, but not even like I could have really held it together, but I just let myself feel it at that moment, because I was really saying goodbye. But I think it helps me to process and then put things in a compartment. Like I knew that speaking the eulogy was not the time for me to cry. That was the time for me to be strong and be cute and funny about him. Like think of the funny things about him and the cute things.
You had a joke in there.
Not me be cute. I had a joke in there.
You did.
I heard that joke.
I know you did. I was really proud of you.
Here was the joke. Can I share it?
Yeah.
I was saying really sweet things about him, but maybe I should read it. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it, because I don't want to get the words wrong. Okay. So I wanted to talk about him, but I wanted it to be funny. So hold on. So I said, okay, one thing about my dad, even though my mom might disagree, he always listened. And I thought that was funny, because she never listens to he never listens to her. He would just tune her out. I was like, that's funny. But at some point I want to post this, because I did have, I sent it because it was very echoey in the church. So the recording that you made is really good, but it was really echoey. So I sent it to my music guy friend, Mike Schmidt, and he like took off the echo. So it's really, so I have to just put the audio back on it. But I feel that it was so concise, and we did such a good job writing it together and getting all the points out about him. And just the ending, like he was a man of few words, so I'll take that page out of his book and keep it short. Like that was your
chef's kiss. That was my little send off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did say the same thing about, my dad never moved fast, always taking his time with his thoughts, stories, and movements. He kept that same pace right up to the end, taking his time leaving us, perhaps to help us accept. How did I not cry? A life without him before he was even gone. So that was the only part that I was like, woof, am I going to get choked up? But I got through it. It's harder for me to do it now on a personal level to you than it was for me to do it in front of the whole church of people.
It's almost like being in front of a group. It's almost like with comedy sometimes. It's almost easier because you're not close to somebody. You're not necessarily saying something directly to someone who you have an emotional connection to. It's like, not that it takes the emotion out of it, but and then being on a stage, you feel
you
like
can
you
disconnect from it.
Yes. Yeah, a little bit.
We have the same thing. It's crazy. I can disconnect myself. There was people that came up to me after at the party and said, I could never do it. I could never do what you did. And I'm like, really? Because to me, it was just like, I flipped the switch and I was in, representational mode. Like I am representing me and my siblings up here. I have to keep it together. I don't know. But I'm glad I have the skill because I feel like it's a skill I can always tap into now and know that I have. It's a hard thing to do anything that's emotional and have to do it in front of a crowd of people. Ugh. But I thought it was so cool how she talked about caring for her dad towards the end and like the things. She made some really good graphic jokes about Sarah Silverman in the special. She made some really good jokes about like, the whole, even the diapers thing, she got into it. And it was so relatable because me and my sisters were in it. We're like, and she mentioned it. I don't even want to say the graphic thing she mentioned, just watch the special. But me and my sisters have been in that where we've had to like help with bathroom duties and it ain't pretty.
And I think it helps comedy because then you're like in the moment, you're like, this is an experience.
What
am I doing now? But then being able to kind of like laugh about it afterward and be like, okay, I'm not the only one who has this experience.
Yes.
Is a really, I think, big one too of like, especially with a lot of these like more taboo stuff about death, especially with like the bathroom and like things you have to do to your parents, help with your parents, not do to your parents. But like, it just makes you feel less alone.
Yes. That's why social media is so like TikTok has such a reach because someone will say something that's like the most taboo thing.
You and then always relate it back to TikTok.
Well, it's a social media because that's when videos go viral. It's when something is so relatable that nobody would say, and then somebody actually said it, and then it's like yes,
Yeah.
So, I think it's very everything relates to social media.
For you, everything relates to social media. For me, everything relates back to comedy.
It's the comedy. Yeah. That's accurate. That checks out. That checks out.
Checks out. How are you feeling now that it's been like a month? I guess let's see, like 1 month. But I also feel like
great question.
Okay, continue. Go.
Great question because I carry the little card of him in my purse, the little prayer card. So sometimes. If my purse is here, a couple of times I put it up here on my computer while I was working and I just was like, hey, and I just feel like he's still here. I don't even think he's gone. I think I have put it in a place in my mind of like, now I'm dealing with the things with my mother and I'm taking her to the casino and we helped her with, moving and organizing and all the things. And I just think now, I don't think it's not like he's gone because he was always a presence. When it came, my mother was always like the main presence and he was always in the background. This is a weird thing to say, but he was always in the background, but he was always there, So I feel like now I have him on my own terms. I can sit him right up here and I don't have to go through my mother to get to him.
Oh my God.
Because when you call there, it. Who does all the talking? Her. He's on the speakerphone. He barely gets to say boo. Oh, talk to your father. I say, hi, Dad. And then she starts talking right over him again. This is not like you have time I had that much time I would have to go there when I knew she wasn't around to have a conversation just with him anyway. So now it's like, it's private. I can sit him. Let's pretend this is him. I sit him right up here on my computer and I just like work and I just like sit with him there and I feel peaceful. So I haven't really since, he died, I haven't really been like sobbing hysterically about it. I sobbed more making the video and writing the eulogy and thinking about him and all the things that I love about him and his adorableness in all my videos. Like those were the things that got me emotional.
Mm.
Now it's like, he's here. We're good. We have TikToks. Still have TikToks in my phone to share of him.
Yeah.
I love to look at that video. I have so many good comments on that video. So once in a while at night, I'll pull that video up and I start to go in and answer more of the comments because I never got to all the comments. There's like 1,800 comments. I couldn't get to them all. So every once in a while I go in and I answer like 20 comments at night. Humble brag. Sorry. It is emotional, but it's also like acceptable emotions for me. I don't feel like I'm so down in it. And I know because Catherine really had a hard time, like really, really hard time. She couldn't, it was just rough for her. She really struggled. And I feel like I was very prepared and I was more ready for the loss of him because I feel like he's still here.
Yeah. The two things that I felt like, one, on the one hand, it was easier to grieve on my end to grieve his the loss, because for me, this is gonna sound bad, but it's really not. I don't think it is bad. But like ever since I moved and went to college, he hasn't been as active in my life because it's not like he's able to come to things. I'm not able to go visit as frequently. So it's like I'd see him twice a year. So in a good way, I feel like that almost prepared me for the loss of like not being nearby, because then it didn't feel as, I think maybe for Tommy might have felt harder, for Jonathan it might have felt harder, but just because I am not there, and grandma came to my graduation, but like grandpa wasn't able to. So I think there was like life moments where once he started getting sick and declining, it's like, well, he wasn't able to because it wasn't
as much in your life,
which is okay. And I accept that that's like a trade-off of like not living in the tri-state area.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing was a few nights before he like passed away, I feel like I had a really not weird. I had an experience because like talking to Steven about it, and I felt like I was having a really hard time like processing and like preparing for grief, because I feel like I never properly grieved like Sita's death, and that was a really big one and at a really big time. And I felt like I didn't properly grieve that one, so it was like almost like a roadblock for grieving this next important death. So it was like a weird where I felt like I had to a release of those emotions, and then I was able to like move to the next one. So it was like very interesting.
Just Sita being our babysitter, in case people don't know.
Oh yeah,
Sita was our babysitter growing up, and she passed away when you had graduated graduated high school or college. Wait,
no, you were in high school. I was a junior.
You were in high school. Okay, I can't remember.
I was like 16.
Oh yeah, so that was a really impressionable time for you and an impressionable loss for all of us. And yeah, and I will say, Grandpa's death, I know it impacted Tommy.
We had new life coming, and there are two. I said this. There are two souls passing in the night. Is kind of my little ode to.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's accurate.
And this way, they've gotten to meet, because if we're really talking about souls, he had passed and had a month with Holly. Oh, he had passed and had a month with baby P.
Oh, I think you can say Holly.
Okay.
Because this will be post her being here. Hold on.
But anyway, that's kind of was my spiritual feeling of
I love that.
They had a month together and wherever our souls are.
You're making me cry. Okay.
I'm sorry.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Girl, with a curveball. You see, you're not so funny all the time. Oh my gosh.
Well,
very true. Jonathan also was very emotional. I'm more emotional now than I was on the day, which is funny. But on the day, I was more protective of Jonathan's feelings because he was feeling it so much.
Yeah.
And, I was trying to keep it together and I knew I had to do the reading thing. So, maybe, who knows? I don't know, but I'm unraveling right now. So I'm glad I'm wrapping it up. So we're missing him, but we also know he was ready to move to the next world. And so he's here with us all the time. Honestly, I'm so upset that I don't have the little card to hold up, because I meant to take my purse out and bring it in here before this podcast, because I wanted to go. And here's the little card that's in my purse. My purse is inside. But he's with us, Artie. And his vibes live in me, because I feel like I have his chill vibes aside from, my crazy vibes. I also have his his sleep. I have his sleep vibes. I have his blood pressure. I have a lot of things of him in me. And so I'm just going to run with that. And that's it. That's it for today. All right. Well, I'm going to put myself back together, and we'll wrap it up. Yours truly,
Helen and Julie.
Yay. Okay, we had to go here. So sorry I had to unravel, but I think it's important, and I think it's a good topic, because we all face it. And at some point, we all lose our parentals, and some of us lose them earlier, and it doesn't help whether it's earlier or later. It's still a tough loss. So just so you know, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So
you better not. So I'm not mentally prepared for that yet.
Don't worry.
I never will be, so it's fine, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. All right. We'll see you next week. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.